Okay, good afternoon, Dave. Good morning from Dubai as well. So please, if you could just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your school, first of all.
Yeah, my name's David Radcliffe, and I'm the head of senior sport and PE at Tanglin Trust School, which is a British international school in Singapore. It's a 3 to 18 school of approximately 2,900 students. The senior school make up about 1,300 of those. And we run a British curriculum in many ways, but obviously with a diverse international flavour to it, as is often the case. The school is 95, well, probably older now actually, about 95 years old. So it's the oldest British international school in the region. Actually started off in the Cameron Highlands and then graduated down towards Singapore. And originally it was provided education to members of the armed forces, children whose parents were in the armed forces, and they obviously rode through the World War II and various issues that Singapore faced at that time, and then it's moved around one or two different sites, but now we're based pretty much in the centre of Singapore. A reasonably compact site for 2,900 kids. As is the case with Singapore, you have to try to go up rather than spread out. But we make efficient use of the space. So we've got good facilities, a really large sport program, which in terms of competitive sport starts around about year 5 and goes all the way to year 13. So each year we have over about 135 competitive teams. Approximately 100 of those are in the senior school. We compete in the local Singapore Axis, as it's called, the Athletics Conference, Singapore International Schools. We compete in that conference. We're also a member of CSAC, which is 16 different member schools throughout Southeast Asia and also East Asia. And that provides really with a vehicle for the top end sport. Our kids aspire to be part of the CSAC team and compete at that level. So yeah, with Australia on our doorstep and lots of transport routes throughout Southeast Asia, we have lots going on in Singapore and lots going on in the region. So our students do quite well in their opportunities. So yeah, it's a great place to work. As you can imagine, Singapore, it's a great place to live, great place to work, facing challenges at the moment, as we all are, and we're just trying to work through that. So it's been a tough few months, but chinks of light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, great. So lots of long-standing values and traditions then in your school. As a PE department, are you more of a faculty with teachers teaching junior and senior, or do you have more of, a head of junior and a head of senior, and do you sort of split a little bit more?
It's interesting you should say that. We are going through a few changes at the moment, whereby we are trying to kind of strengthen that pathway throughout 3 to 18. The way things are set up at the moment, we have senior school PE, we have junior school PE, infant school PE, and we have junior sport and senior sport, which obviously comprises of the PE department as well as lots of external coaches that work for us as well. We've just appointed a director of coaching and sports methodology, and his biggest remit is to try and develop those pathways throughout the junior school into the senior school and have a more continuous progression. And we've just appointed, well, we've got 6 now, but we've just appointed 4 heads of sport in the kind of really big programs that we have. So we have a head of football, a head of netball, head of rugby, head of touch, and that's added to a head of gymnastics and a head of swimming, or director of aquatics. So yeah, so we're in a way we're kind of transitioning from the kind of discrete PE departments in each school to try and create a more cohesive structure throughout the entire school. And we're just working through that, which is a little bit more challenging given the fact that we've been working remotely pretty much for the last 3 months. So, but we're getting there, and we should be ready to hit the ground running in August, hopefully.
Good. So, and that's good. That I wanted to get that context for anybody watching. every school's different, every context is different, and you're in this position of, like I say, a long-standing independent school, a really competitive sports program, but you know, a through school with lots of staff and specialism. So it's important people understand that when we talk about, you know, your approach to current situation and things like that.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So you've returned to school now, post quarantine. And do you want to just how long and what's it been like? Just give us a little overview, really, for the past couple of weeks for you.
Well, as you well know, you're in, well, in Singapore they called it the circuit breaker period. It was lockdown essentially, but the aim was to break the rising chain of infections that were starting to creep up in Singapore. Kind of lose track of time for how long things actually were. I think the circuit breaker period itself lasted about 8 weeks, throughout April and May, and then we came back to school at the end of May, the start of June. So I think now we're in the 3rd week of being back there. That's right, the 3rd week of being back, and it was very gradual steps. I mean, the actual coronavirus situation in Singapore is relatively good, if I may say that. There's lots of cases in the migrant worker population who work in construction, a lot of those sort of industries, and the cases in Singapore were not actually that high in terms of the general community. However, we went into this lockdown period to break the chain, if you like, of what was a rising transmission. When things opened up, it was very gradual. So there was strict rules, probably similar to everywhere else, really. Only 50%, no more than 50% of kids were allowed in school at any one time. Strict measures about staff only being in school when they're teaching or preparing to teach. So staff in every company in Singapore has to work at home unless they can't. So we're in a little bit of a flexi situation where we go in, we teach, we come back. And then, of course, we've got infant, junior and senior school, which is very different contexts. So what the infant and junior school have done is they've taken, they have alternate days where they have 50% of their class in each day. So that's 10 to 12 infant or junior students from each class, on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then the other 12 on Tuesday and Thursday, and then the following week, the kids that previously got 2 days, they'd have the Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Seniors, they've banded that around, and it doesn't really work when you've got option classes and you've got constraints within the timetable of you could do Monday, Wednesday, Friday and not have a science lesson. Probably not a great example, but you understand what I mean. So in the senior school, we have alternate year groups by week. So currently this week we have year 8, 10 and 12 throughout the whole week, and 7, 9 and 11 are on remote learning still. And then next week, year 7, 9 and 11 come back for school-based learning, and 8, 10 and 12 go back for remote learning. Our year 13s that missed their exams, then they're following a little bit of a life skills university preparation transition program, but that's all online.
So is the is the when they're not in school, that 50%, or are the teachers delivering? So they're teaching their class in the morning, or for the day, but then they've also got work to give the kids that are at home online as well.
So when we were on remote learning, like lots of schools, we developed our own website and produced all our own materials for that website, and then we used that for activity ideas, and we would set lessons and guide students in their activity using ideas from the website. And the website itself was a combination of PE and sport. So we had a PE section and a sports section. The PE section was about fitness and well-being. We had a skill zone where students could practice different skills. And the sports section was a little bit more focused in terms of high intensity training. Each of the sports, which are big programs, they were setting skills and drills, really, if you like, that students could do at home. But we did set lessons, we did set our groups tasks and work, but actually it was, dare I say, it was a little bit of a flexible arrangement in terms of we were not holding students to doing that workout or doing that routine or doing, for example, if everybody's got different home circumstances. There's some kids with swimming pools. There's some kids that will go out in the parks with their father on their bike or their mother, and they have a 1 hour bike ride. We were accepting, well, that they've done their activity. So we were asking students to log their activity. We weren't doing a hard, fast check, tick box, you've done this amount of exercise. We were just trying to encourage and equip students with the tools, really, to be as active as possible.
Yeah.
And it was a continuous case of developing, like drip feeding new ideas. We had it was the mental health week during that period, which was in a way quite a welcome break, that we set students different activities based around drinking water, sleeping, no devices, and kind of built that into the PE as well. So yeah, it was just about really during that period trying to be as creative as possible, and recognizing really that actually there's only so much fitness and so many workouts that young kids can do, young people can do at home. And really, by the end of that 8-week period, we talked about it as teachers. We did feel a little bit of enthusiasm waning, actually, and in fact, the return to school came at a good time, because every other lesson we joined the group with camera. We used Teams at our school, so we would have our groups on Teams, and we would talk to the class, talk about what they like, what they don't like, what they would like to have, and just putting a face behind the work that were being said. And we found that touching base regularly with the students. And actually, what we found is that a lot of the times the students just like to have a chat with you and just talk. They just want to talk to you, because they're the same, right? They're looking at a screen all day because they're having 4 or 5 lessons on the bounce, which are all on the computer, and the teacher trying to set them work through the computer screen. So yeah, I definitely think that was something we learned, is that you have to get on there on the camera and touch base with the kids regularly, otherwise they lose interest quite quickly.
I think you mentioned a couple key things there, really, that I mean, we're doing 15 weeks of online learning, so we're week 13 at the moment, and we realized early, like you said there, physical activity and setting HIIT sessions and things like that is not going to make these kids passionate, or probably won't make them exercise. Some of the really super committed ones might do, but like you said there,
some kids really bought into it, right? Doing the challenges and competing and getting different best score than someone else, and but other kids, as you can imagine, they
So
can I just take a 5-second break, because this is another reality of learning. I've got my 5-year-old child banging on the door.
I'll pause.
Just give me.
Okay, we're back. The 5-year-old has been sorted. So we were just saying there, like giving students choice, talking to them, and basically teaching them how to have a bit more of a sense of responsibility for their own health and well-being, and understanding why that's important is going to be key in whether we're teaching online or in person or in a blended approach. That's going to be something PE departments really need to think about. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. And with the website content, we try to do everything ourselves. Sometimes we throw in kind of people within the community, but people who the students would recognize. I know there's a lot of stuff out there on the internet that you can easily hook up and get students following a routine, but I just feel that the students really deserve teachers to model what we're asking them to do. And don't get me wrong, I weren't doing a 40-minute routine in front of the camera, but certainly the activity examples. One of the sections we have was about 16 different exercises which teachers would demonstrate and each exercise there would be 3 or 4 variations, making them more difficult, making them a little bit easier, and we would use that for students to build their own workouts.
Yeah.
And again, I think it's just better. You get better buy-in, and also the students, you know, they appreciate the work that we're putting in, and I think it's just a little bit better than having some celebrity on there with it.
Yeah, and they have a
soundtrack behind.
They have a relationship with you and with their teacher, don't they? So when you're demonstrating a burpee and you're rubbish at it or whatever, that actually engages them more rather than some, like you say, ripped up person doing it amazingly well.
And it's the reality. It's the reality, right? You know, I mean, you know, it's some fitness professional in spandex doing a 50-minute workout whilst chatting on a microphone. It's disengaging. It's not the reality. It's not the real world, right? We work with all types of children, and you know, you need to give them the options and let them choose what's appropriate.
Yeah.
Sometimes a little bit of an incentive.
Yeah, good. Some questions I know that'll be burning on PE teachers' minds that aren't back at school yet. Could you paint the picture of, you know, when you get this half class of grade 9s turn up to your lesson, to the sports hall, for example? What does it look like? What are the processes and procedures that you go through as a PE teacher and as a department?
Yeah. So the rules around PE in Singapore schools, we take our guidance essentially from the Ministry of Education. Yeah. What is prescribed for the local schools, the Singaporean schools, is we take our cue from that. So the restrictions that were, you know, they're quite stark actually in terms of no balls, no shared equipment, so no shared balls which would be used by multiple students. No games, no invasion games where students are moving around in between each other. Obviously no contact. In Singapore we have a 1 meter distance rule, and also there's very extensive tracking and tracing. So if, for example, we were unfortunate that one of the students in our class or our school was diagnosed with coronavirus, then we would have to be able to say in an instant, well, they have been in close proximity to this student, this student, and this student, which means that the usual senior school day has to change, where we try and keep students in the same classroom as much as possible. Yeah. Obviously, when they go to languages, they go to PE, they have to change. They go to language options where some students have chosen Spanish, some have chosen Latin, some have chosen whatever. So they do move around a little bit, but then when they arrive to the classroom, they have to use a QR code to check into a desk. Wow. So that it builds an electronic picture of exactly the desk arrangements where every kid has been throughout the day. Now we don't have that in PE, but what we do have, we try to, in senior school, because students are only in 50% of the time, we actually worked out that the most a student would get would be actually 5 PE lessons between coming back to school and the summer break. So what we did was we devised a carousel of 4 different activities actually, and they were based around fitness. One was a yoga session, one is an aerobic session, an interval session, and an SAQ. And what we tried to do was make them as fun as possible by playing different type games based around those themes of continuous movement or speed, agility, quickness. And the speed, agility, quickness, you know, it's a little bit of a game where you use hoops for a maze, and you have to get your team as quickly as possible bounding from hoop to hoop. But if there's someone in the hoop, you can't use it, and if you're trapped in a hoop, you go back. This type of thing. So really, trying to make them game based, but have that fitness theme. The infants and juniors have been a little bit more creative. Obviously, the younger children, their imagination's a little bit stronger, which means that you can bend the rules a little bit in terms of playing TIG, and kids, if you burst their 1.5 meter bubble, their cord. And I think in seniors we felt that would, we'd probably lose them quite quickly. So So we've tried to keep the kids active. We tried to take them outside as much as possible, actually. We kind of had, we structured it so that the juniors have the majority of the indoor spaces with their groups of 12. Seniors with groups of 24, we wanted to use the bigger outdoor space and get kids moving. That said, the yoga session has probably been the favourite for girls and boys throughout the age range. A couple of reasons for that, probably the 35°C outside and the tremendous humidity. I must admit we've definitely pushed kids a little bit beyond their comfort zone in the aerobic session, let's say, after a 2.5 month enforced break, and then in this climate, getting them to do any type of continuous exercises hits them pretty hard, I must admit. So that's something that we've tried to just tone down a little bit, just recognizing that, you know, the reality that some of these children are not that fit at the moment, and you know, this climate's brutal. So again, it's making things around little continuous races where they're playing as teams, and I think that's something that's really really shown through, is that kids like to the students like to compete. They like little competitions. They like to be part of a team, and I think that's something which they really missed when doing PE at home. Remote learning is just working out on your own. It's not that much fun if you're a child, I don't think. So there's been it's been a little bit of a challenge in terms of moving students from space to different facilities. Naturally, we have to keep them socially distanced, even just 1 meter. Naturally, if kids are walking down to a facility, they just adopt social norms, right? When you're talking to someone and you're walking with someone, you go shoulder to shoulder, and you lean in and you're talking, and so it's a constant battle just to remind students, actually, and everyone's buying into it. I must admit, students are buying into it. They enjoy PE at Tanglin. The students really enjoy PE, so we have no issues with students opting out of returning to school. We have no issues with students opting out of PE. You know, on the face of it, they appear to enjoy it. But as I say, it is a challenge given all the constraints at the moment. We're hoping that we might be able to do some sport. And when I say sport, I mean different groups of students coming together to play football, for example, or netball. At the moment, we have to keep students in their individual classes. Largely because of that contact tracing, and which we hope we don't have to do.
So the interesting there, you know, the activities you've picked, I suppose they're dictated by the guidelines that you're given to work within. So, you know, like you say, no invasion games, so you sort of push towards there. But it's good to hear that, you know, that making them a bit more gamified and team-based, although they're not, you know, because that's what the kids are going to have missed a lot, isn't it? Like you say, they're going to have missed each other, the social side, and I think PE as a subject has a big responsibility to promote and reintegrate them to talk and mix together, especially for schools around the world that would have had really long period. I mean, we've had 15 weeks plus the summer holidays after this. So these guys are going to be knocking on 30 weeks of not seeing each other and having a PE lesson. So it's going to be.
I think it's worth noting that we are now in the final 3 weeks of school. We in the conversations I've had with colleagues in the department, if we come back to school in August and the constraints are still the same, we will have to adapt. We will have to become more creative. I mean, it's unlikely that the same level of constraints will be in place unless there is a regression. But the way that we've set things up really is with an eye on the fact that this is getting towards the end of term.
4 lessons.
We wouldn't really want to go. And I think again, given the climate and given the interest of the students, they can enjoy a lesson of SAQ. They can enjoy an aerobic lesson. They can enjoy a yoga lesson. But if this was a 16-week term and at the start of it,
yeah,
we need to get our thinking caps on and change that, and just try and, because they're not going to be infused again for too long with this type of fitness.
That's good advice.
Lesson.
Good advice. I'm sort of a bit worried that lots of PE departments might just do 6-8 week blocks of health-related fitness, day one bleep test, things like that. And I don't think it's, in this situation, perhaps the best approach initially. Being creative.
Like 1908.
Pardon?
It's like the 1908 curriculum.
Yeah.
Kids stood in lines waiting their turn. Physical endeavour. I think. But it's a challenge. It's not going to lie. It's a challenge. Because I think there is room that you can probably use things such as footballs, or have students with their own piece of equipment which is not shared, and then you constrain spaces, you constrain movements, so you effectively play an invasion game but you invade with the penetration, you invade with the ball, you don't move and overlap and move around like that, and I think that's probably a direction we would go.
How are you handling things like hand washing, equipment cleaning, face masks, changing rooms? These are a few things that I've been thinking about. What are your procedures for those types of things?
Well, students don't change. So on the day that they have their PE lesson, which is twice per week in the senior school, they come in their PE kit and they stay in their PE kit the whole day.
Yep.
We advise them to bring a towel, like a sweat towel, just to give themselves a quick wipe down if they've been outside and it's super hot, which it invariably is. But students bring everything to their lesson, so we try and get them into the mindset that they arrive in their mask, they have a drinks bottle, they have a towel, they have their bags, and they put their bags and they take their masks off, and that's their little station, if you like, with drinks bottle. Because what we did think about was that, well, because students have to arrive at the lesson in a mask, you can imagine kids putting masks down, most of them look the same. And then at the end, everybody's scratching their head about which is which, and it's so even with yoga indoors, we get them to put their bag at the head of their mat, and then they use that for their drinks bottle. That's where their mask is. That's where their towel is if they want to give themselves a little bit of a clean at the end of the session. Juniors and infants as well, they go in. Infants go in PE kit every day, because what they do is they have just short 15-minute activity sessions every day.
Right.
Because obviously the whole curriculum in infants, or the whole style of curriculum, has changed. Usually it's very creative, students moving around, whatever takes their interest, they'll develop that. Whereas now they're anchored to a table like everyone else, and they have like a little workstation. So every infant class gets out there onto the field for a quick 15-minute session, foundation movement skills. They have their own ball, and I think for me that's been taking students outside is nice, and the spaces are bigger, the risks are smaller, because I'm not going to lie, the school doesn't feel as relaxed as it normally would, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that everybody's walking around tense, but the whole dynamic changes when everybody's wearing masks or face shields. Just the whole social dynamic changes, and getting students out into the fresh air, taking their mask off. It's like that sense of freedom.
Yeah.
So even when we're indoors, students take their mask off, but the lesson that the seniors do indoor is yoga mats, and the mats are equally spaced. So we put down blue spots 2 meters apart, and we laid the mats down on each, and the mats are not allowed to move. At the end of the mat, we spray it with an alcohol disinfectant solution, and students are responsible for just wiping that with a paper towel, and they're putting it in the bin. So the next person that arrives, in theory, should be arriving to a disinfected surface, because we did think, I mean, it's to what extent you want to take this. I mean, you know, the floor is a surface and a part of the apparatus, if you like, and if you're not using mats which you can clean, you know, everything that you breathe out, everything that you shout out, everything that you cough out, ultimately will land on the floor. And then if you sit children down, they will put their hands down to get back up. And it's just to what extent do you take this? So so we have yoga mats for the indoor lesson, which we clean, and then for the rest of the time, obviously, students are outside or they're on their feet. So just to get back to your question, there's no changing. Students bring everything they need. They take everything they need away. We try and do things outside for the reasons I've just explained. I think that was it.
Yeah, and again, it's that bit about taking the mask off and that sense of freedom. I foresee that PE is going to be one of those subjects front and center that's going to have a big role in schools to generate positive feelings and connections between people, and being but we as PE teachers have got to make it a safe place, because like you said, there is tensions. There are children that are going to be more anxious than others, you know, from different cultures, depending on their parents. I also wanted to ask about your staff and you as a department, and how have you guys been, and as the leader of the department, are your staff a bit nervous? Are they worried? Are they just getting stuck in? What's the feeling like?
Yeah, can I just pause there again for
So yeah,
in terms of staff, we have regular Teams meetings using Teams or Zoom in different parts of the school, and I think just touching base frequently during that home learning period is really important, just for that personal connection and just seeing different people other than your immediate household, right? So that was good for morale. And then when we went back to school, I don't think there was any real apprehension. Obviously, there were steps taken to ensure that anybody who might be considered in a vulnerable group, you know, had to look at different ways in which they were going to return to school. But that was taken care of in each faculty. Fortunately, in our faculty, we don't have anybody we would immediately say is in one of the vulnerable groups. And I just go back to saying that in Singapore, the situation feels under control, and it was a sense of release really when we were allowed to go back to school, go back to work, and people were just excited to see each other and, you know, see the students. But I must say, I walked into the sports hall and the team were putting down the safe distancing spots for where we were going to lay the yoga mats, and I'd not seen them for best part of 10 weeks, and actually it felt like I'd just seen them yesterday, because we'd had a meeting the day before, and it does actually tick the box in terms of being in contact and staying in contact, and you know, it's very real in many ways. So it didn't feel as though we were seeing each other for the first time and we were stepping into this potentially dangerous situation. And I'm not saying that people were blasé or you know, discounting the risks, but certainly, you know, the point that we went back, the Singapore were testing, you know, 10,000 people a day, and in the community there were like 3 cases, 2 cases, no cases. So it doesn't feel like the virus is lurking on every corner or every door handle. So actually, I think there was a feeling of relief really. But then I'm not going to lie, it's been great to be back. It's been great to see the students. It's been great to see colleagues. It's been great to get out of the house and get back doing it, because the remote learning was challenging, and it was becoming more and more challenging. So that was great. But I think the general feeling is that after a few weeks, that kind of novelty had worn off a little bit, and people were just now missing the fact that it doesn't feel the same.
Yeah.
You know, the school, as you know, schools are busy places, they're bustling places, they're full of noise and full of groups of people. And, you know, you walk past a group of year 10 boys and exchange views on the weekend's football or whatever it is you do. And actually, it's not like that, because there's half the number of kids there, there's half the number of students in school at any one time, it's half the number of staff. People move quietly because you lose interest in talking through a thick muffled mask all day. And staff are coming and going, so it doesn't feel like you're getting to work at 7:15 on the morning and you're putting in a full shift, and when you're teaching and when you're not teaching, you're with other colleagues. It's a little bit more transient and not the full package. Obviously, the CCA program is not happening yet. The strict rules about that still in Singapore. So that's a huge element of the school provision, which we're part of. It's not happening. And I think it's dawning on people now, actually, that it's quite sad that our year 13 students, and in some cases our year 11 students, some of them have been in the school for 15 years. They started in nursery, and then reception, and then they went into the infant school, and they're leaving, and we've not seen them since February. Some of these, for a PE teacher, I have some students that have been in my teams for 7 years. We've travelled all over the whole region. There's been laughter, there's been tears, and lots of amazing experiences for the students, for us as teachers. We might not see them again, actually. They leave their families, they leave Singapore, they go to university in the UK, and that's sad. That's sad. So we are doing something with our teaching groups. So our teaching groups, so for example, my year 13 A-level PE group, just 10 students are coming back into school. We have in the 45-minute, just a bit of closure, if you like. But, even that, it's not the way you would like to do it, because it's not a social gathering. It's a class who are coming in to close this chapter, if you like. So it's not going to be the usual, shared drinks, and it's not going to be a celebration, if you like. It's still going to be students checking in, having their temperatures checked, sitting at a desk and the masks and everything that goes with it. And it's just sad. That's not the way you want it to end with some of these students that we've enjoyed lots of good times throughout the years.
So I think as teachers, we're just trying to sort of wrap it up a little bit now, that we've got to be really open-minded, creative, and resilient, but accept that it's going to be different, and we need to be prepared for that. And I suppose role models of uber positivity for these children and our colleagues, because I suppose everyone's going to have ups and down days. Some people are just going to be fed up of it on some days, and others need to pick them up. But for you, sort of closing comments from you, what would be sort of your top tips for PE teachers or departments who have not returned to school yet, who will be returning to school either very soon or after the summer holidays? What would you advise them?
Well, the top tip I would say is that don't expect too much too soon, because from our experience, when students are finally allowed through the doors, all this talk about learning and lessons missed and falling behind, from our experience, what we've seen is that in that initial first few weeks, the students are just dying to see their friends. You know, they just want to get some normality back. They want to talk to their friends. They want to see their friends. They want to be in the groups that they're usually in. And I'm not saying that we can discount the curriculum and forget about the curriculum and just allow them that, but I think it's just supporting that really. And when you're planning your curriculum, just have in mind that these students are coming back, they're just enthusiastic to be there, and embrace that. Just, you know, design something which is going to allow students to be active, to be with their friends in a safe way. Don't worry too much about educating them about fitness components or nutrition or training methods. Don't worry too much about that. You can hide that in a fun, creative lesson where students are able to socialize, be with their friends, and just be active and normal again. And I think that's what we've learned these few weeks.
That's a good piece of advice. Thank you, Dave. So on behalf of everyone watching this, I'm sure we'll get a lot from what you've said there. Thank you very, very much for your time.